Hello, Franklin County. We are, as I said, we're starting to do some informational videos that we can put out to help businesses and even residents of Franklin County with some things that they need during this crisis, the COVID crisis. I'm really happy to say that our first guest is John Waite, Executive Director of the Franklin County Community Development Corporation, Franklin County CDC. John is someone that I have the pleasure of working with quite a bit in a number of different ways, actually. Where in addition to the things that we work on together, the Chamber and the CDC, we sit on the Freddie board together, which is the Franklin Regional Economic Development Initiative.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah.
Very good.
Which is a really great assembly of people. And we also get together frequently with a large group of people, and we talk about diversity in Franklin County, which is something that's really important and on our minds. And so I always value John's input on that. So the Chamber very much values the work of the CDC on good days, and particularly now that we're experiencing these bad days. And I thought that John would be the best first guest to have on these videos because of the work that they're doing. So, John, did you want to say a little bit about the CDC for people who don't know?
Well, I do want to say that these days, obviously, the CDC is getting a lot of attention, but it's a different CDC. And we've always gotten confused a little bit with the Center for Disease Control. And I wondered if sometimes our website gets more clicks these days because people are are typing in CDC. But we work on economic health, not the medical health. And but thank goodness we do have the Center for Disease Control these days.
True. Very true. So John, I've had the pleasure of touring over there, and you have the kitchen. And I thought maybe people might want to know a little bit about some of the work that you normally do with helping businesses get started with their business plans, their financing and everything. And certainly if they're a food related business, access to that incredible commercial kitchen. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that a little bit before we got into some of the things that you're doing now for businesses in their time of need.
Thanks, Diana. And again, thanks for having me on. And I love our relationship. I mean, obviously, we're working with the businesses in Franklin County, and we work with a lot of the entrepreneurs, the startups, the earlier stage ones. The Chamber works with everybody, so it's a good symbiotic relationship there. And I think it is important that us organizations that have been around for a while, that have been sort of steady working with small businesses, we need to pick it up a little bit during this time. But the fact is that we have a lot of things on the ground already. We have staff here who can help people with their business plans, and even in normal times, people are changing their businesses. We hear the word pivot a lot now, but good businesses are sort of always pivoting, I think. So, we can help with that. Right now, digital marketing obviously is more important than some other kinds of marketing, and we have workshops for that. We've been doing that for a while. Right now, money is a big issue, obviously. We've been running loan programs for 35 years. The first thing we did, we have about 100 borrowers in our portfolio. The first thing Alan Singer, our lending director, did was talk to all of them, find out if they needed to go on deferments, if they needed interest only, if they couldn't afford their payments for a few months. We've addressed that with all of our current borrowers. You mentioned the food processing center. Again, a lot of businesses can't produce right now, but there are some that are still producing. So our food center is still open. We have staff over there. The most we have in there at any one time is 4 people, and they're social distancing as they're producing. So it's slowed things down, but it keeps going. One of the things we did, we had a lot of frozen vegetables in our freezer because colleges were buying them, schools and colleges. And once schools and colleges closed, we needed to do something with our frozen vegetables. So our staff came in and repackaged them from 25-pound boxes to 1-pound bags. And they're going out now. So you'll see them at some stores in the area, and some of the farm stands actually are buying them. So that's we're really glad the food system is continuing here. Our grocery stores are doing a good job. Our farm stands have stepped up. The cooperatives are doing a good job. So some things are continuing, even though they've changed quite a bit. So those are our sort of main programs, and they're continuing, and we can do a lot of stuff online. So please, our website, fccdc.org, has a lot of resources of what we normally do and what we're doing now.
You touched on a couple of things that I want to just add to a little bit. And one of the things is that we work on a lot, I think, is a lot of mutual referrals. So a lot of times people will call the Chamber of Commerce because they have an idea to get started with a business. They're not really sure what to do. So we, of course, refer them over to you. And then as they get to growing that business, I know that you recommend that they are in touch with the Chamber, which also helps them grow it in a different way through networking and marketing and things like that. So we also work together on the Entrepreneur of the Year Award, which is really fun, and that's an event that we work on together. And Amy Shapiro, who's at the CDC, has been really instrumental in pulling together all of the business associations from throughout Franklin County. And we sit down and we do some planning and some strategic discussions around that, and that's been really great. So I have a couple of questions where I thought it would be great to give you an opportunity to talk in specifics about what you're doing right now. We're currently in the middle of this just unprecedented global crisis.
Yep.
And that has resulted in this very large federal stimulus package that's designed to help employees, businesses and employees. And I know that the Franklin County CDC is helping to facilitate the rollout of some of these federal monies. Can you explain your role and how you can help businesses in Franklin County at this time, what they should be doing if they need some help?
Yeah, so we're really happy that the federal government says, they stepped up with that large package, and 350 billion of it was going to small businesses through the Small Business Administration. So the first thing we just encourage people to do is you've got to work with an existing SBA bank, basically. We're lucky that our local banks, most of our local banks in Western Mass are they call them 7A, SBA 7A lenders. So you've got to contact your bank. But if you want to work with us first to help get your stuff together, that's fine. You've got to there's a simple application. Usually it's the banks and the SBAs. And then you have to have your backup materials. So there's two different SBA programs. One's called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL. And that's usually for sort of the larger small businesses, larger loans, but you can get a $10,000 advance. And that advance is forgivable. So we've encouraged people to do that. But then the other one came out, it's the SBA PPP, Payroll Protection Program, which we think is really sort of better for small businesses. And just like it says payroll protection program, it's for helping you pay your payroll during this time. Whether you've slowed down your business, closed your business, pivoted your business, if you've got employees, you need payroll. That's a huge expense for most small businesses. This can help give you the money for 8 weeks of payroll. So you need to prove that over the last year, and especially over the last several months, what your average payroll is, and then you can apply for 2.5 times your monthly payroll. So that can help you pay payroll for 8 weeks, plus utilities, mortgage, rent, things like that. And that is forgivable. So if you use it to pay payroll, it's forgivable. One thing is things like restaurants who were forced to close. Well, you still have employees. If you want to keep them on payroll, even if they're not working very much, you can still apply for this. Obviously, your employees can't get both unemployment and payroll, so you've got to kind of choose. And for some people, it might be better go on unemployment. Unemployment has some better benefits these days too. But for businesses that are really worried about their employees, we think this is a great opportunity. Greenfield Savings Bank, the Co-op Bank, some of the others are doing it. The Savings Bank is actually doing it themselves, whereas others have hired a third party, so it's a little more complicated. They're all online forms, and if you need help with it, let us know. So those are the two big ones we really encourage everybody. Whether you think you need it or not, you should apply for these. It's basically money out there that the government wants us to have to keep our economy going.
That's great. Our banks are really just such great local partners. We're so lucky to have Greenfield Savings and the Co-op. I actually have very short radio interviews. I did one already with John Holland from Greenfield Savings, and I have one scheduled for next week with Michael Tucker from Greenfield Co-op, and I'd like to do one of these videos with them as well,
Yeah.
because they're really just an integral part of how businesses can get this help. And in terms of the PPP, you know, I've been talking to a lot of businesses, a lot of our chamber members, as you might imagine, over the last few weeks, and it seems as if the PPP is working well. For the businesses I've talked to, I think the process has been fairly easy, and the money has been rolling in quickly, and that keeps people working. That's just really, that's a really great program.
I would say it depends who you talk to. I've heard some people have a little bit harder time. Part of it is how your records were. If you're using an outside payroll company, you've got to get that paperwork. But you're right. The banks have just been working around the clock on weekends. We really appreciate their work. And it, you know, brand new program, $350 billion, it's not easy. So I think, you know, if it takes a couple extra days, that's all right, but it is starting to flow.
That's great. That's just so great. So, you know, obviously businesses can be applying for these loans or these programs. Besides those things, what do you think is the most important thing that businesses should be doing at this time?
You know, one thing is certainly cutting your expenses is the first thing, and I know that's easier said than done, but you gotta look out for it. People at this time always say, you know, put on your own oxygen mask first, kind of the airplane analogy. You know, so you got to keep your business in a place where hopefully you'll be able to open up and pick right back up and bring people back on. But I mean, we've seen so many great success stories. You know, we had some of the restaurants who had food in their refrigerator, they started giving it out, you know, a couple weeks back. What I'm now thinking about is they're going to need to build up their inventory when they do open back up. So we've got to be prepared for that. And so there's lots of other sort of smaller grant loan programs. Some are already out there, some are in the works to try to help these folks out. I know just yesterday, Northampton opened up their CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Program. So they'll start doing $5,000 and $10,000 grants to small businesses. We're working with the town of Greenfield and Montague and some of the other towns to put something together in Franklin County. So hopefully that we'll be able to announce that within the next few days or a week. And again, I think a lot of us are going to have to piece together these things. If you can do you know, some people are doing GoFundMe pages. On our website, we have a couple other grants. A new one that just started is it's with Citizens Bank and LISC, Local Initiative Support Corporation. And that's $10,000 grants to small businesses. And I think we'll see more of these. I understand Berkshire Bank is doing something too. I'm not exactly sure what their geographical territory is. So I think by looking at our website, the chamber will try to keep these resources there. The state economic development has a department, has some information on their website as well.
Right. Well, and one of the things people can do, and I touched on this in the video yesterday, is obviously a lot of businesses have had to change how they're operating a little bit. And so getting information out to people about that is really helpful. And the chamber has a vehicle to help folks do that. I know, you know, some businesses are working on some longer term projects that it's always hard to get to. You know, there's a lot of things. There's some webinars that are out there that people finally have time to look at.
We were looking at some this morning, and some of them are, like I said, digital marketing, how to look at things differently, e-commerce, but then some are just self-awareness. So you can reflect on, you know, this is the time to think the bigger picture. Are there changes in your business that you wanted to do, and this might be the time to do that.
Right. So, even how to maximize your use of Gmail. I mean, people don't have time to spend on that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things we can be doing with this time. So you touched on some of it. Are there other other programs small business people should know about at this time?
Again, because we're quite involved in food and farm businesses, we continue to have the Pioneer Valley Grows Investment Fund. So we're still making sort of regular loans with that. But then we also started a separate fund with CISA, our buy local organization. So we have an emergency farm fund, and that I think it's open through the rest of this week, and then we'll make decisions next week. And those are just very sort of subsidized or 0% interest, long-term, up to $25,000 for farms, because that's an important part of our Western Mass economy. And then we
Absolutely.
also have the Mass Food Trust for anybody, any food stores, mostly healthy food. If you're selling healthy food out there right now, we need more of that. And we
Right.
have a grant and a loan program for healthy food businesses. Again, I really want to thank our farm stands and some of these delivery services because they're keeping the food moving. You know, it's obviously not harvest season, so we don't have all the best fresh produce, but there is a fair amount available out there. We have a lot of the food access groups who are really stepping up.
Right.
In our building here is community meals, and I just see people donating more food to them, and they're still getting it out to the pantries, which is key. You know,
Yeah,
Community Action and the food bank are doing a great job at that as well.
I was going to say our social service agencies and our nonprofits are really doing a great job. And I mentioned it in my video yesterday, but I've been contacted by businesses wanting to be in touch with them to see how they could help out some of our larger manufacturers. And that's just a really, really great thing. You touched on farming, and you know, it's so great that they're getting this help because it's not harvest time, but this is a really important time of year. We're really entering an important time of year for our local farms. And so I'm really glad that there's some programs and some funds that they can access to make sure that we keep, because that's the best thing about living here, right?
That's what we need. And one of the big challenges they have now, of course, is they depend, and I've always used a lot of folks who come in from other countries during the
Right.
planting in the summer, and that whole program is now just up in the air. So I would say anybody who's interested in working for farms, this might be a good opportunity if you have extra time.
Absolutely. They're going to need, yeah, they're going to need a lot of help.
And
So
they're not sure with it. People ask, you know, they don't know how much to plant. Should they plant? Like we buy a lot, we buy hundreds of thousands of pounds of vegetables for our school program, freezing program. Um, you know, at this point, we're all making sort of some assumptions and decisions, even though we might have to change that decision next week as new information comes up. But at this point, we're still assuming that, you know, schools will open up in the fall and they're going to need food. So people should be planting for that.
right.
So it's all about just making decisions based on the best available information we have.
I know, and that information is just changing all the
Yeah.
time and so quickly. And so how can people reach you? Because you just gave a ton of really great information, and I'm sure there's people who will watch this who will want to reach out. What's the
Yeah, so
best
the
way to do
website's
that?
obviously the best, fccdc.org, has all of our contact information, emails, phone numbers, and then all the connections to the webinars, the different programs. And as we had talked earlier, Diana, we want input from people too. We know people need money. If you have ideas on how we can help with that, let us know. Are there other things that small businesses need, both right now and as we start to open things back up again? The more we know that we can lobby, whether it's legislators or private businesses, or try to put together programs. So we need information from small businesses as well.
I would just wholeheartedly agree with that, because at the chamber we're starting to think about what's next.
Yeah.
And what do businesses need, and what do the next few months look like? You know, there are a lot of unknowns, but there's things we can move ahead with. And you know, in talking, I'm sure you talk to a lot of businesses, and obviously there's you know, a lot of concern and some anxiety, but I hear so much resilience and so much strength.
Yeah.
You know, when I talk to our local business people, and they're just really ready to get back at this when it's time. And I hear that same resiliency and excitement about moving forward from our residents and consumers in Franklin County. So I think that we're, you know, once we're ready, I think we're going to, you know, bounce back and get on healthy ground and do that fairly quickly. And I really appreciate, John, that there's organizations like yours that are helping our small businesses in really tangible and meaningful ways. So we thank, the chamber just thanks you so much for what you're doing, and all the good support that you give our businesses. And I just, you know, is there anything in closing you want to add? I just thank you so much for being
Yeah,
on
I
with
mean,
me today.
I think these the other funds from the federal government will start showing up, whether it's $1,200 or whatever. And again, I hope in our community, you know, it's revolving that around the local economy is going to be really important. Those of us that have a job and are being paid, we need to make sure. You know, I was just thinking this morning, when I go for my haircut eventually, I should pay for 2 haircuts while I get the one. So there is
Exactly.
going to be that kind of aspect of things when we get back at it.
I
But again,
think
we're
that
all in this together. Diana, thanks very much for this opportunity.
you're welcome. Thank you so much for being on, John. Stay healthy, stay well, and we'll talk soon. Thank
too.
you.
Thanks.